Hi, sweeties. How are you doing? Welcome to Naya Sim. Thank you so much for the support. Hope you are great. I am going to say a very big shout out to this beautiful, gorgeous sister. I mean, I really do appreciate her work and she is doing great. So I came across where she was talking about the role of oppressed white women oppressing others. And that immediately took me back to history. And also, back then when they really did oppress everybody. These people are going to oppress you even when they are depressed. But as long as it is you that they are doing it, that it's okay. So the white woman actually came out to say that, that they are being hated, and people that they are trying as much as they can to be on their own since after the elections because a lot of people think that the abuser is also turning up to take control and abuse them too, and all that. Now, I am going to ask who are the people that voted into power the abuser? Now, the reality is that I don't think anybody hates you, right? But you all already know that you have played a major role when it comes to the oppression of people that look like me. That is something you all cannot deny because if you check back from the beginning of the history to this very moment, you definitely will see the connection of them oppressing people and making people's life not so great, especially when their tears drop. Whenever their tears drop, it means nothing will ever be investigated because they are always the right people. You know what? Let's get into.
Okay, so Aria Avalon, what other option do white women have? Everyone else hates us. Everyone has been very vocal about women being on their own after the election. Now our abuser is turning up the abuse to control us. Okay, so I wanted to be able to discuss this comment, but we have to make some agreements before we go into this, okay? Thing number one, there is no dogpiling. This is a educational space. We're exchanging information. Thing number two is that for any white woman that listens to this video, please resist the urge to feel guilty or to hate yourself. That's not what this is. We are exchanging facts. And in order for us to exchange facts and deconstruct ideologies that are not helpful to the forward progression of society, we must deal with the facts. And sometimes the truth is scary. Okay? Thing number three, and the most important thing, please leave not everybody outside of these comments. This is not, this is talking about the general society. Okay? So please know I'm not like this, not every white woman. Okay? So these are all the agreements that all of us have agreed to make. Great. So let's move forward. Okay? Now, I want to be able to tell you about the thing about white women, because I also saw your other comment where you said that white women have been fighting as well. But I want to let you know that that hasn't been long. White women have not been fighting for long. So just let me tell you a little bit about the backside of white women when it comes down to the oppression in the United States of America. Because the myth that has been circulated is that all the way back to even slavery, slavery was kind of like a white man's thing. But let me tell you how white women were a part of slavery. So what we're going to do is we're going to start in 1669, right, with the Casual Killing Act. The Casual Killing Act was explicitly passed, hear me, was explicitly passed because white women were unaliving mixed children in very cruel and alarming ways. To be specific, they were using methods such as boiling them, skinning them, torturing them, and beating them to death. Those were the methods that were utilized. Also, did you know that slave skin was used for shoes? Okay, so this is what women were doing to slaves. And it got so bad that there had to be a law that was passed in order to protect them because white men did not want to hold them accountable. You can double check all of my reference. This one is coming from The Ohio State University. as well as other places. Okay, this is documented stuff. Alrighty. So we know that this is how women were engaging with slaves. Fast forward, right? And now you have the Mississippi Married Women's Property Law of 1839. Okay. And this is very important because a lot of people didn't believe that white women owned slaves, but they did. And this particular law, as well as others like it, allowed for them to be able to take over the wealth of the property should their husbands pass away, and for other reasons that they ended up receiving this type of wealth. Now, this is very different than what was happening in the North. And the reason why it's different than what was happening in the North is because in the North, they were underneath coverture, which for coverture meant that whatever the woman owned belonged to her husband when she got married. So Southern women were richer than Northern white women. And this is very important when you talk about white women supporting some of the things that were going on in the oppression of others in the South, especially when it comes down to the Civil War, because the Civil War had the same outcome for white women in the South that it did for white men in the South, which was everybody was finna be stripped from their wealth. Do you see why white women would support the oppression of others? Even though they themselves are also being oppressed. And this is what is confounding, is that white women, though they also were oppressed, didn't mind participating in the oppression of others due to their direct benefit of patriarchy and the direct benefit of their oppressor's oppression. Okay, now we gonna keep on going. Because studies also show that because white women in the South were able to own such property, that they accounted for 1/3 of slave transactions that happened in the South. 1/3. That is 33.333333 all the way off into eternity percent of the transactions. But transactions that involved slave women. White women were participating in the marketplace for those transactions at a 40% clip. Now, that's what was happening during slavery. Let's go ahead and fast forward. And this history we all know a little bit more about, right? The weaponizing of white women's tears is what ended up occurring by the time we get to Jim Crow, by the time we get to lynching, right? And there are a lot of different examples that we have of white women lying on people, getting them unalived, and white women coming out to say, oh, by the way, lied about that right before they pass away. That is no different than what actually happens here. In modern society, like now that we are fast forwarding, because remember, Emmett Till was in the 70s, 60s, 70s, as in 1960s, 70s. Okay, and remember, that white woman lied on him, and remember, she came out and said that she lied right before she passed away. Okay, so now we fast forward it. All right, to what happens in modern day. Some of the ways that this shows up in modern day is at work when white women go to superiors and bosses and they say that a person of color is not trying to be their friend, or a person of color is not talking to them, or they tried to be nice to them and they're not being nice back. This is another way that shows up. Because you have to know that you're going to go and tell them that would mean that somebody's going to come and do something about it, because that's the way that white women have been able to navigate this space and this earth. Everybody in America, and I would dare say everybody in the world, knows that a white man caves at the tears of a white woman. And how do I know this? My sociology class. At the end, the last week of that class, we were able to ask other minority or other ethnic groups questions that we wanted to know about them. And as you can see, I'm a bit of a chatty person. And so I myself was called upon to ask the first question. And the very first question that I asked was to my white colleagues. And I asked them, why do you guys cry when you don't get your way? Because my Black women's tears don't move anything. Okay? But why do you guys cry? And they honestly answered and was like, we were taught to do that so that we can get what we wanted. Now, mind you, this sociology class was run by a white woman, and she was mixed with white and Native American. And she was also somebody that participated in civil rights. Love this woman down. Okay. Now, the reason why people are saying that white women are on their own is because white women, just like every other group except for Black women, benefit due to the proximity or in some form fashion from the oppression that white men put on everybody else. And in this moment, white women have to fend for themselves because the rest of us are fending for ourselves. And that's why. And it hasn't been long that you guys have had to fend for yourself because of your stance in being able to help support minority groups. And is it easy? No, because there's a price to be paid to stand up for what's right. But to give in because it's hard, and to give in because other minority groups aren't fighting for you, with you, isn't fair, because you haven't fought for them with them for that long. All right, not too much. I do agree with your sentiment, but I would say that it more so shows them who their family was. And it also adds context for them about why the older generation of their families are very reluctant, hesitant, or it is difficult for them to understand what they're saying about how others are being mistreated and how they would need to stand up for the mistreatment of minority people groups. Because there's a generational difference. The thing about traumas and familial stories and habits is that they're intergenerational, right? So if one generation experiences a negative situation, they teach their kids, and then their kids teach their kids, and then their kids teach their kids, and then their kids teach their kids. The only way to find out if the story is true or not, it goes back to proximity. Proximity to people of color have taught a lot of the millennials, Gen Zers, Gen Alphas, and even some of the Gen Xers that the story that has been passed down from generation to generation isn't true. And because because the information has been attached to that specific, these younger generations, that's why they are so staunchly different in their stance than older generations. That's why you kind of have this us and them thing that's kind of happening with a lot of white people in their families. It is very important to understand the beginning, the origin of a story. Because, yeah, people that were raised in that generation, people that were raised in that era, it is very, very difficult to unlearn habits and beliefs that are foundational to who you say you are and how you navigate this world. It is literally a shifting of an entire mental paradigm. And that's not an easy thing to just change, right? Like when you take a look at this current administration, President Trump was alive before desegregation. His parents was alive during sharecropping. You see what I'm saying? Like, so these type of beliefs that he has are very, very deeply rooted because of the generation that his family comes from, if that makes sense. So VP Kamala Harris graduated with her doctorate degree, in Juris Doctorate degree is what it's called, in 1989. Beginning in 1990, she became a prosecuting attorney. Then she was also the district attorney. She then became the attorney general, and from being the attorney general, she also became the a U.S. senator. And then from being a U.S. senator, she went to being the VP of the United States of America. This is 30 years worth of preparation, 30 years worth of studying, 30 years worth of understanding her sector, understanding what's necessary when it comes down to governance, and honing her craft. What we currently see is that there is an assault on qualified people, on qualifying, disqualified people. And so this administration right now is seeking to be able to have a narrative that they want qualified people to be in roles, to be able to lead the government. But at the same time, they are seeking to make it very hard for you to be a qualified person. And so I want to be able to encourage you all today in that whatever sector you wish to go into, prioritize qualifying yourself, learning things, having those certifications, even if you choose not to do a traditional route where you go to a university, that is perfectly fine. But you must find a way to qualify yourself, not for right now, but for the future. And when it comes down to those that have been fantastic leaders, they know the importance of being qualified. They know the importance of education. And Barack Obama said that there's no need for us to wait for other people. We are the person that we're waiting for. We are the change that we seek. And so for those that are millennials, for those that are Gen Xers, now is your time. But in order for you to be able to do what it is that you want to do, as far as assisting others and going into these places and spaces where you can impact and affect change, you must be qualified. And the time for you to be qualified is not when you're needed. You are supposed to qualify yourself in preparation for when you're needed. Had Vice President Kamala Harris not taken the time to qualify herself, there is an argument that when she was needed, she would have not been selected and thusly would not have been chosen. One of my previous videos talks about this narrative of what's for me is for me. I don't like that narrative. And the reason why I don't like that narrative is because it leads to complacency. It leads one to believe that by osmosis, everything that you desire is just going to show up for you. And that's not how life works at all. You must be prepared to receive what it is that you are trying to obtain. And this current administration is seeking to dismantle the Department of Education. Have you not thought about why we are seeking to dismantle the Department of Education? You literally have men that are in power right now that are unqualified and unfit to even run their own businesses. Not an educational requirement has been met. Not a service requirement has been done. One of them even sought to dodge the service requirement that was mandated by claiming that he had some type of disability. So in this time, where there is a targeted and concerted effort to qualify the disqualified, I urge you to find yourself qualified. Not for today, but for tomorrow. Because now is quickly approaching our time to be able to impact change. And I am underneath the belief that those that are necessary for change are you and I. But the only difference between you and I being the change that's needed and not being the change that's needed is whether or not we are actually.
This is all I got from this video. And very big time kudos to this young woman. She is just so good. You know, when she talked about the role of oppressed white women, oppressing others, even when they are depressed, that is their duty. And you could see the comment that a white woman dropped, and she said, "What other option do white women have? Everyone else hates us." And Everyone has been very vocal about white women being on their own after the election. Now our abuser the is turning up the abuse to control us. That is your problem. If the abuser is starting to control you, what are you and your entire white women doing to stop it? What are you doing with your power? Are you using your power to oppress people, or you are using your power as a white woman that is well privileged to free people? Majority of you, the best you all can do, white women, they know how to get result when they put their minds on it. But the best, when this is when they put their mind on it, is especially when there is a black woman working with them at work. That is when they know how to put their mind and their heart to get something done, especially when they do not want you. And when they keep certain people, out of their neighborhoods. How do they keep certain people out of their neighborhoods? By you look like the description, or do you live here? By calling the police. I saw a naked person out here running around. When you are fully clothed as a black woman, you know what they can do. See, I don't know how to say this, but all I can say is that let them wake up and go and do what they are supposed to do instead of using their power to oppress people, because they love it. I remember telling you people that these people are not ready to fight. Why did I say that? I said that because I remember bringing video some months ago before the election. White women that they interviewed were like, why we are not going to vote for Kamala Harris is because if she becomes the president, black men are going to benefit more than we. So it means that we have to depend on black men to get things done. Our men are going to lose jobs, especially our husbands. So how are we supposed to let that happen? The reality is that some people would rather keep you oppressed than see you get out of that oppression. The only thing they know how to do is to look for a way to keep you down, because that is the best way they can rise. But they forgot that the sky is large enough for everybody. Sincerely speaking, this is what they've been doing from the beginning of. I didn't know how to explain this, but take a look at the history, at least the one that I have been able to learn so far. Take a look. Most black men that got into trouble, most black kids that got into trouble, that are super innocent, how did they get into that trouble? Probably because said that he looked at her, or he whistled, he giggled, he smiled. That is how the story starts. And one thing is that their tears are worth the people that looks like me. If you look like me, your life is nothing to their tears. Their tears are worth everything. And when it is coming from them, nobody cares to investigate or to make sure this is, as long as it is them, it is absolutely correct. And there is no need to investigate it. Check all of them. History is the best teacher. And when you refuse to learn your history, that is where you get into trouble. That's why sometimes when I see some black men, I look at them, I know why I am looking at them. And you know why I am saying this. Snot bunnies. See you on in my next video. Bye for now.